this is Student Council. You should all have your agendas in front of you. On the agenda, so the terms of reference just basically means what the meeting is about. So it's where students can submit and vote on policy, and it's also a place where students can hold the full-time officers to account. The full-time officers this year, if you don't know, is myself, President.
Precious, the Activity Officer for Chelmsford Campus.
I'm Jamie, I'm the Activities Officer for Cambridgeshire. I'm Kat, I'm the Welfare Officer.
I'm Grace, I'm the Education Officer.
All students are invited to come to Student Council, so thanks all for coming. But the only students that are allowed to vote are elected committee members or reps. So you all have, most of you have voting rights. I think you're all. Is there anyone that isn't a committee member or rep? Yes, difficult. But you can still obviously participate in discussion and stuff, which is great. As part of sort of my visibility campaign that I run on, we are going to be publishing how all of the reps and committee members vote. So make sure you do vote, which is cool. Big decisions are going to be debated on today and then voted on afterwards. Voting will happen when the meeting closes for 24 hours online. So if you have any questions around that, please do ask. Does anyone have any questions on how the meeting will run? No? Perfect. If you do want to ask a question or make a comment throughout, please let us know hands up for once. It could get carnage if everyone tries to talk over each other. Let us know what your name is and what your role is if you have one. And so now we will move on. So the minutes of the last Student Council, which was on the 25th of April, they're just to note, they've been on the website and stuff, so does anyone have any questions around those? No? Perfect. And then the next thing is quite exciting. We need to appoint 4 members to our elections committee. Elections committee is the place where all of our elections are planned, so our full-time elections and our part-time elections, so campaign reps and faculty reps. In those meetings, the rules and regulations are set and monitored. And the current membership is the SU officers, staff and 4 students nominated by council. So we need to appoint 4 students today to the elections committee, but if you do want to do it, it's important that you're available for the planning meetings as you have voting rights in those. If you are appointed onto the committee, you cannot run in the elections in March. You can be a committee member and you can be a course rep, but you can't be a faculty rep, a campaign rep, or a full-time officer. So, it's ideal for students who want to get involved in the elections but don't actually want to run. And it's quite a good experience. They're friendly meetings, they make big decisions, it's great. So, is there anyone that's interested? It's quite crucial that we get 4 people today, so I would encourage it very highly. Is there anyone who's interested in being on the committee? Have we got hands?
I'm going.
Oh, yeah, okay, we've got 1.
We have 4 hands in Cambridge.
4 hands in Cambridge?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, and 1.
Well, yeah, I can see 4.
Okay, so 4 hands in Cambridge and 1 in Chelmsford? 2 in Chelmsford. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do really quickly is just say 30 seconds worth of words as to why you would like to be on the committee, and then we'll take a vote in the room. So make sure you state your name and a role if you have one. Shall we start in Chelmsford? Who wants to go first?
Okay, guys. My name's Dean Mitchell. I've been here since 2013. I've been very engaged with the SU since I've been here. I held the role of course rep for human resources management for 2 years running successfully, and also faculty rep for the business school. I am aware that, of the procedures involved in having run in the elections that I ran against Lee. Which is a very enjoyable time, and it's really something that I could always recommend to anyone if they want to improve themselves. it would be nice to have an opportunity to be able to get on the committee, do a different aspect and element of the Students' Union and to see how it develops and to have my input.
Can I withdraw?
Yeah. That's fine. Okay, we'll go over to Cambridge. Grace, do you want to just pick, the order and just make sure you say your name and role?
Well, first we'll do like square, so 1, 2, 3.
Okay. My name is Nadia. I'm welfare rep and I am course rep for psychology and criminology first year. I really just want to get into sort of what it all is, and I don't particularly plan on running in the actual election, so it's a good way to sort of realize and figure out a bit more about what it is.
Just realised I can't do it because I'm on a placement year next year, so.
Oh, that's alright. Thank you for volunteering anyway.
I'm Nishan. I'm administrator of the Law Society. I have held position of faculty representative in 2014. I've had experiences in elections, running for elections. So it will be nice if I'm voted. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Matthew Clements, a year 1 rep for computer gaming and tech. And I honestly just want more stuff to do and to help out in any way I can.
Oh, thank you. Right. That's
Cool.
everyone.
Well, that will mean we have 4, right?
Yeah.
So we'll just say if anyone objects to any of the 4, rather than only one of them. Does anyone object to any of the 4 being on the elections committee?
Object.
Unanimous.
No.
No.
Speak now or forever hold your peace. No? Well then congratulations. And we know that. Okay, thank you for that, for speaking in front of everyone. That is quite a big thing to do, so well done. The next thing is the appointment of student trustees. So we have recently appointed 2 new student trustees to our trustee board. The trustee board is the board that oversees everything the union does, from strategic to that sort of thing. It's chaired by the president, and all of the officers act as trustees on that board, as well as students and externals. And so we went through interview process.
There's a lot of rustling, Lee. We can't hear you very well.
Sorry. I don't know where the rest of this we went through an interview process, and myself, Grace, Kat, a student, Mohammed Ali, great name, and an external trustee, Paul, sat on the panel, and we decided to appoint 2 of the candidates. Their names are on here. It's Daryl. Where are they? Their names on there. Daryl Sham and Kieran Khan. It is all written on here, so I'm just trying to read from time. So Student Council is just asked to ratify the decision so they can begin training and sitting on the Board of Trustees. So, are we happy? Don't have to vote or anything, do we? It's just We're happy? Yes. Good. Well, congratulations, Daryl and Kieran. We are going to move on to the meaty stuff. I am going to introduce Kat, who is going to chair the next section of the agenda. So I can sort of speak on it because I don't want to be chairing it and it seemed like a declaration of interest type thing. So Kat's going to chair the next part of the agenda.
Alright, so I'm going to introduce the democracy review that we undertook. So obviously the Students' Union core function is representation led by 5 full-time officers, and we aim to actively engage you all in representation, and democracy, one of those things is council, so you're all engaged in that right now, which is wonderful. And this is you being able to shape what you wanted to do. It's why you put policies in, all sorts of different things like that. But in September 2015, the union approached NUS to lead a review of our representative structures and to look into possible alternatives to strengthen decision-making and democratic participation. So a survey was developed in order to understand the preferences of the membership in relation to democracy and representation, and there was a total of 824 responses to that, which is about 5% of the student membership here. NUS then produced a detailed report recommending the type of innovations that would suit the membership of the union. So in October and November 2015, we also commissioned Red Brick Research to conduct a wide-ranging piece of research, as well as that, and over 3,200 students took part in that, making it the largest piece of research ever conducted by the union, which is pretty awesome. Then this has led to the development of a new vision of mission and 5 priorities for us to address as a union as part of our strategy, and to make our brand really cool and blue and fantastic. So what we found from the surveys was that only 41% of students or people that took the survey agreed that the union effectively represents you in your views, and only 53% of you agrees that the union ensures that every student voice is heard. And what are the current problems? Is that we're not effective because only a third of people that took the survey felt that current full-time officer roles were neither effective or extremely effective in representing you. So we're not relevant. So a little over a quarter of students felt that they understood what the full-time officers do, and that we're not accountable. So slightly over half the students either agreed or strongly agreed that they could properly hold the full-time officers to account. So we took that into consideration and found what students really want. It is that 93.3% of those that took the survey felt that either important or slightly important that these full-time officer roles include responsibility for academic representation. The other top priorities identified for full-time officers were communications, equality, welfare, disability liberation, campaigning, Black liberation, employment, LGBT liberation, democratic procedures, societies, and women's liberation. 56.4% of people surveyed felt they were either very or slightly likely to share the same views as someone who shares their interests, and 53% for those on the same course as them. And 58% felt democracy in the union should be in control of the organization by all of its members, compared to only 35% who felt it should be in control by a majority. So, taking all that into consideration, the key changes that we're proposing are these, and we'll be debating these shortly. We want to split the executive committee, which is currently made up of the 5 executive officers, faculty and campaign reps, into 2 bodies. So that would be the Faculty Voice Committee, and then the Liberation, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And each of these 2 groups would have a clearer role, remit and responsibilities. We want to alter the timing of the election and the term of office of faculty reps, so moving it to March. We want to reform our representation and introduce a multi-portfolio model of full-time officers, having a number of shared responsibilities and students represented by faculty or faculties. We want to streamline our part-time officer roles to those only focusing on representing oppressed and minority groups, instead creating volunteering opportunities and supporting student-led projects and societies to meet needs identified through other roles, such as environmental community. And finally, why we want to change is to be better at representing your students' academic interests, to enable greater collaboration, be increasingly relevant, adaptable and flexible, and to improve our accountability of the officers. And it's also worth mentioning that when this was started to get put together, Lee and Grace, among others, visited lots of other unions that had similar roles to this, so Middlesex, Salford and Staffordshire universities. Went to go and see officers there to talk to them about like how they felt the roles were, and so spoken to a lot of people, heard people that were actually in those roles. So I'm going to hand over to Lee to go through the first change.
Okay, so the first one is the amendment to bylaw 11, which is in the pack. It's SC 09/16, so it will say on the top right hand corner of the page, so you can have a look at sort of the details there. I need to find it back up. Yeah, so just following on from, so the bylaw 11 is changing the structure to the full-time officer roles and the part-time rep roles from what they currently are now to what we're proposing. So what we are proposing is to go from, for the full-time officer roles, to go from the single portfolio roles as they are now, so president, education, welfare and the director of these officers, to multi-portfolio roles that are faculty-based. So the president will still stay as it is now, so be the person who sort of brings together, acts as the sort of main communication between the university and that kind of thing. And then the 4 vice presidents will be faculty-based, so they will basically champion that faculty. So we'll have vice president for arts and social sciences, vice president for science and technology, vice president for business, and vice president for FHSC and FMS. The reason FHSC and FMS are together is because they're the closest in terms of what they offer within the faculties in terms of courses, and but obviously if there was a need for a 6th officer in the future, we would adapt to that, and the conversations with the university would happen in terms of funding, etc. So we feel that the change to these roles, so as well as the vice presidents being the lead representatives for the faculty or the faculties, they will lead, inspire and support all of the elected reps and volunteers within the faculty and faculties and the union itself. And within their job descriptions, they will have a series of things. And within the survey, we asked students what they thought the priorities of the full-time officers should be. And they came up with about 12 things in total. And number 1 was academic representation, which is where the whole faculty thing has come from. And then the rest of them were things like societies, communications, equality, well-being and welfare, campaigning, employment, democratic procedures, and disability, Black, LGBT and women's liberation. So all of these things will be embedded into the job descriptions. So all of the officers will be mandated to be working on them. But the idea would be that they would be streamlined within the faculties. So not all of the officers would have all of the work to do all of the time. It would be focused within the faculty. So for example, if I was the vice president for business, I would champion any welfare issues that there were specifically in business. And that would be the same for like societies, for example. If there are any specific business-related societies, I would champion those in that way. But as well as that, this structure allows the sort of flexibility for the officer team to work together on more things. So these 12 things they can work together on. So I've had quite a lot of questions from society members and society committee members around what happens to interest-based societies because they don't directly fit into the faculty. The officers will still be representing all students, regardless of the faculty, but they will be championing the faculty in that sense. But they will still have the ability to be approached by students for anything. So if a member of the cheerleading society, for example, needed to go to an officer for a certain thing, they could go to any one of them. And the likelihood is that students would go to the one that they like, which is pretty natural anyway. And we'll still obviously have our staff team that work within departments that are working, every day, day in, day out on different things, including societies and activities, democracy, representation, advice, volunteering, and that kind of thing. So that is kind of a brief overview of the full-time officer role changes. And then the part-time roles, we are proposing to streamline those as well. So there'll be less roles than there currently is now for part-time rep positions. So the ones that we will still have will be BME rep for the campuses, disabled students rep, international rep, LGBT plus rep, trans students rep, and women's rep. So the ones that we won't have anymore, we will be working to meet the needs of the demands within those groups in other ways, such as volunteer roles and societies, for example. So some of the ones that won't be rep roles anymore will be things such as communications, environmental and community, mature students, postgraduate rep, societies rep, sports club rep, and welfare campaigns rep. But because there won't be a specific rep role for those things doesn't mean that there won't be people working on them all the time. So with things like communications and welfare, for example, they're going to be embedded in the full-time officer role job description, so they're going to be mandated to be working on those things more often, if anything. And then things like societies and sports club rep, we're looking at the different ways in which the views of the students within those groups can be heard within the union and then brought over to the university. So we're looking at having, because societies will know that there's forums every month which all of the committee members are invited to. We're looking at having like a chair role, a forum chair role, so one of the committee members will take that role, facilitate the meetings, take all the feedback, and then be invited into our internal meetings with the student activities department. And so the voice of the committee members will be taken by that one person and embedded into the work that we do internally with the staff team and the office team. And other things, for example, like the mature students rep, the mature students rep now is setting up a mature student society, which is great, because that's encouraging then more mature students to get involved with the student union and come together as a group. And societies, as most of you will know as well, you can have as many elected committee members as you like, as long as they're relevant. And then you have voting rights in forums like this, so you still have that ability to get your voice heard in that way, if anything more. And that also opens the opportunity for us to be able to fund these groups in better ways and allow us to stretch our budget a lot further. With the smaller number of roles, our campaigns budget will go a lot further, and obviously when society is then created for the other interests, they'll be entered into the society grant sort of world of, society grants, all that fun. So that's pretty much an overview of that.
Fantastic, all right. Thank you, Lee. So I'll now be taking questions. If anybody has any?
Can you just tell me about the role of the deputy president and how that comes about?
Oh, yeah. So we currently, within the officer team, we have, obviously we have the president, and then when the team's elected, we sit down as a team and elect a vice president between us. This year it's Grace, because that's who we decided it would be. And then that's just the person that would take on the responsibilities of the president if the president wasn't there. So that's just that written down, basically. That currently happens now.
So, with it now being elected by the Faculty Voice Committee, how does that change? Or does it change?
Sorry?
With the Deputy President now being elected by the Faculty Voice Committee?
Oh, so currently it's just the 5 full-time officers that decide who the deputy president is, but we would open that up to like the rest of the committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, thank you.
I mean, to be honest, what it really means is that I approve like when Lee's sick or on holiday and things, because she does that like for the rest of her, so that Lee's got somebody doing that for her as well.
Okay.
And if Lee's off and she has, a top academic committee to go to, I'll go to instead of her. So it's not a massively like big responsibility to have, to be honest, because Lee's never really off, and she's quite good with stuff, so that's decent, yeah. But it just means it's a bit more representative.
Cool, thank you.
Brilliant, okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on Bylaw 11? Fantastic. Cool. We've got anyone in Chelmsford?
Any questions? Yeah, we've got one.
Cool, so I'll go Cambridge and then Chelmsford, yeah? So,
why are we changing everything after we just changed it to split like Sarah Hayter's old job into welfare and activities?
would you like to, yeah?
Yeah. So we changed the changes that Sarah's team before I came in. So that's like 3 teams ago now. They did that because the job of the experience officer was too full.
Yeah.
Essentially, they couldn't do welfare, all of welfare and all of societies and extracurricular at the same time. It just became too much. So as an interim, that's what was decided, because the communications officer role essentially was about creating content and doing what we thought was like a staff member's job in our union. It wasn't like representative of a group of people, it was just like a thing that somebody does. So we, in the interim, split that so that this year it could just be, it could run smoother. And then when that split happened, me and Dan decided to do the democracy review and take a proper look at the rules, because I just think it made sense really to go through and make sure we were still doing things the way we should be. If that bit had been wrong, what else was wrong? It's kind of logic behind it, and that's how we kind of started looking at everything and got the feedback.
Cool, thank you. Michael?
Just so people know, I'm Michael, I'm from TAGS, I'm one of the interest-based societies. We do tabletop and gaming and things like that, so board games. Although I've had a lot of my things answered today, I went to one of the Q&A sessions. There's still a few things that we're not 100% set on as a committee in general, I think, and this also does pertain to quite a few of the other interest-based societies. The main one is the accountability. Now, some of that's been alleviated by the fact that if, for example, I went to an FST, which is my faculty person, then they would have to treat me, or they would have to take my problem on, as it were. But we're still not 100% happy with the fact that we don't have a direct person to go through, and the answer that we can go to anybody isn't as easily workable as, for example, we already know who to go through. One of the other things I wanted to bring up is the fact that a lot of the things from societies, I believe, now will be going through to Dan. So he'll be taking on a greater role, but that still doesn't offer us the sorry, we're doing too many things at once.
That's fine.
Me too's fine.
That doesn't give us the ability for change to occur so much, because he's more restrained by the he's an employee of the SU when it comes down to it, rather than an executive officer who have historically had a little bit more leeway and lean towards students rather than the SU. Improvement. I've been told that they can still stand on policies that aren't pertaining to their faculty, but I imagine most students, the average everyday student, is going to look more towards voting for somebody who's going to improve their faculty rather than improving their society, because when it comes down to it, we're all here to get a degree at the end of the day, and that's the number one priority for 90% of people here. Possibly even more than that, 99%.
Alright, cool. Does anyone like to respond?
Yep, I can take that. That did end up being a little bit much for me, so just tell me if I've missed something.
That's fine.
I'll respond to you. The answer to your first bit, what I was going to say was that you would have a student opportunities coordinator, so Dan or Katie in Chelmsford, who would take on a lot of the work that Jamie does now, or Precious does now. So that would be, you would be able to come to any officer to help you get members, champion your society, and like, I suppose like helping you flesh things out if you need. But you would be able to go to Dan, things like, you know, booking the minibus, sorting out rooms, conflict within your committee and stuff like that. So I don't think that answers your question. So you were talking about needing an officer for, was it accountability, did you say?
Yeah, so it was accountability. So because of the fact that we can go to any of them, there's still a little bit of grey area as to
who's actually responsible.
Yeah, I mean, I know all of them technically will be responsible, and if we go to one, but in terms of continuity and stuff like that, we'd much prefer to just have one point of call.
One of the reasons why, first of all, we changed, well, the officer team before us changed the experienced officer role, was because it was too admin based, and they were doing, and I was the experienced officer last year, and I was very, very admin based. I was doing a lot of the work that the coordinator was doing in that sense. And one of the main reasons for this change is because the officers can tend to be too admin based, and they need to be acting more as representatives than administrators in that way. I completely get your point about not having one specific person to go to for one specific thing, but you can go to any of the officers for society issues, and then you will have Dan, the staff member, to do all of the admin-based stuff, like Ray said, booking rooms and that kind of thing. Yeah, so what we found throughout the research was that students told us that they would be more likely to share the same views as someone on their course or with the same interests. And the beauty of this is that the elections will be opened up to a lot more people, I feel, and it will allow all of the candidates to have on their manifestos anything of their choice. So you might have someone from Leeds who has, they want to make tags the society the best thing in the world, and that would be great, and that would probably be the person you would vote for because you would share the same interests, but not necessarily be from the same faculty, And so it will allow that kind of flexibility, it will allow that more students to run for the roles based on what they want to work on throughout the year, and that could be any of those things that were kind of listed.
Cool. Thank you, Lee. You good? Fantastic. Can we take the question from Chelmsford?
Yeah, Alan.
Right, hello. Firstly, a comment on the methodology, because if you've got the data is now 3 years old, so responses are going to change year on year, and 5%, well, that's one of the best studies we've done so far. That's not really a huge amount of people. So, particularly if you've got the representatives from people like mature students, postgraduates, and welfare, those sorts of people have quite a low take-up in these surveys, and so their responses aren't going to be as well recorded as the majority of people. But those people are also people who have quite a large number of things that different requirements to the majority of the student population, and so losing that, as well as communications, which has been identified as one of the major things that this SU needs to look at, losing those as reps and representatives is not a good thing. I'd also like to comment on how at the moment we have at least one rep on the Chelmsford and Cambridge campus. I'm a little concerned in the new rules that it could be that a campus could have 0 reps tied to that person, and so it can be quite variable. There's no persistence of contact for people to speak to when dealing with any issue. So I understand how this came about, but I think maybe an initial pilot study to look at to see whether responses are still relevant in today's university, and whether or not we need to make any changes, and whether or not anything new comes out.
All right, thank you very much. Who would like to respond? We'll go to Lee and then Daryl.
Okay, so the research was done in September 2015, September, October, November 2015, which was last year, and so it's just over a year old, not 3 years. So it's still quite relevant to the students. Some of the students that may feel that would still be here now. In terms of the, when you were saying reps, did you mean officers? Like the full-time officers with the campus issue?
With the state campus, yeah.
Yeah, so I like to think that so all of the roles will be cross-campus, so no matter what campus the officers will be from, they will be mandated to split their time equally across all of the campuses. As we do now, the only people that don't have to do that is Precious and Jamie, but the rest of us do. So there will be guaranteed representation on the campus throughout the week.
Okay, but on that, I've seen you because you're here with Paramount, I've seen Precious Paramount in the previous years, I've seen the activities officer or whatever it was called at that point, but the so-called cross-campus officers I haven't seen so much at all.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for is some sort of assurance that there will be minimum time spent on campuses.
And as a student, you are the people to be telling the officers that they need to be spreading their time more equally. You need to hold them to account really in that way, because they were elected as a cross-campus officer, so they should be splitting their time quite equally. Probably the case of when they are here, because I can vouch for them in the sense that they do come here quite often. It's just that they might not be in the places where you are at the same time, and obviously we all have to go to different meetings, so we're cooped away in meeting rooms, this room a lot of the time, and so that could be, some of the reason as to why you haven't seen them.
Is the board upstairs behind the counter? Is that for everyone? Is that for all the staff? There's a board with stating who is. Is that the one? If you find the person who you're after, you can check what day they're in and see if it corresponds to when you're in as well. Try and catch them, drop them an email, and then try and meet them that way.
And just on the mature students and the communications stuff, so communications is something that we've had quite a few conversations about. Communications should be something that everyone is doing all of the time, not one elected individual. It's really difficult to say that one elected rep needs to be communicating everything that we do all of the time to every single student. That's a lot to ask for one person, and so that's why it's embedded within the full-time officer roles. So communications is written in there, so they have to be communicating all of the time, and all of the other reps.
My understanding of the communications rep was that it was for looking at the processes of communication rather than specifically communicating.
Sorry?
Carol, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I just have a couple of more general comments that hopefully will address some of the things that have been said by different people. So I'm a postgraduate researcher at the moment, but previously to that, I held 2 different roles within the Student Union, and before that was an undergraduate and a rep and in a society and all kinds of things. So I was like, I've been #1 Keno for a while, so I've seen things from lots of different angles. But most importantly, what I've seen is the development from where we had 5 officer roles, 3 or 4 years ago when I first came in, to realising that those weren't necessarily appropriate, to working with 5 people to try and change those, which ended up with the roles that we have now, to seeing an entirely much better review take place by those people to come up with better statistics that show what a new team should be. So 3 years ago, my team and I were looking at how we could improve the roles, and we were there with you. We were saying, this isn't quite working right. We know that there's different needs that need to be addressed. We're not quite sure how. So we did our level best to speak to people on the different campuses and go and look around the nation and see what other SUs were doing. So as best as our efforts were put together, it was the efforts of 5 people who were elected at Anglia Ruskin, and that was it. What you've got now, from what I've seen from this team, is some really concrete evidence where they've spoken to about 4,000 Anglia Ruskin students that gave their views and said, this is what I find important. So this hasn't just been pulled out of nowhere, and the questions that you're asking have been thought about already, although they are still obviously really important. They've based these decisions and these suggestions on real numbers and real statistics, answering what real students really want to work. So in terms of being a society and having someone to turn to, I really understand that, because I was a society and I needed someone to turn to, and then I did the role that was very similar to Jamie and Precious's, so I then was that person. So I've seen it from both sides and I understand the need for it. However, the year before I became an officer, there was that one person on my campus, and he was the dedicated role, but where was he? He wasn't there to answer my questions, and he wasn't there to, much less be an admin, he wasn't even there to just be someone to speak to. So you have to understand that when you elect people, whether it's 4 people, 5 people, or 1 person in a role, you may end up with someone who is not best suited, and that's where you have to hold people to account, as everyone has rightly pointed out. I just think that looking at it from lots of different angles, it seems really inadvisable to go against real hard statistics from thousands of our students, although the views of us are all really, really important, and you're all here because you represent other students, which is amazing, and questions might be raised from you guys that weren't raised in the survey, but I find it really, really difficult to ignore the views of 4,000 people and the hard work that has been put in to then create new roles out of that, because I saw us trying to make roles when we didn't have 4,000 views, and I promise you it wasn't easy, and it was nowhere near as good as what they've come up with now. So I just think that needs to be taken into consideration when you're asking questions and stuff.
Brilliant. Thank you, Daryl. Jamie?
Okay, so first of all, Daryl, I would like to challenge you for #1 Keno, because that's definitely me. But I just have a quick question that I wanted to ask about the rep changes, because I understand that it makes sense to turn them into societies, that's totally fine, but those societies need money, and the societies that we have now are already battling for the grant pot that they have, and they're expanding and they're growing, and that's amazing, but none of them got the full grant they asked for because we don't have the money for them. So creating more societies out of people who already have a budget to run a campaign, is that something that we want to do when it's much easier to run a low-income campaign than it is to run a low-income society? is that something that's been considered in terms of giving the societies more budget?
Okay, Lee?
So we are bringing, I mean, you're on the policy that we're bringing today to up the grant pot by 15%. And if that happens, then there will be an increase in the grant pot. And right now, that's not something as representatives and as students we have to think about. That would be the role of like the CEO and the staff team to ensure that they're catering to the needs of students. If students are saying they want those more societies and that happens, then the student union staff team need to think, okay, where do we need to put our resources, and do we need more resources? Do we need to ask the university for more money? And I'm sure the university would do that, because societies very much benefit the university in terms of retention, and retention is something that they need because they don't want students to leave. Students leave, they don't have money. So yes, I think that can be adhered to in the future.
Fantastic, thank you. Nancy?
And as well, I want to contribute with something that basically was explained to me before regarding this thing. In terms of the position of reps are going to stay, the ones actually going to be transferred to the duties of the societies. I think that actually it will be very important, because there are specific societies regarding, for example, welfare and as well, I think it is master students. They can actually do much more in terms of having just one rep doing it a lot of things. I can tell that because I'm a rep for international students for 2 years. I'm dealing with my society, with Rep Society, and as well now with the new International Student Society. So, for example, from that point of view, if the International Rep Society in the future runs well, probably you're not going to need a full a rep international student, because the society can do much more in terms of activities and events, which that actually give more opportunities. And like you said, I mean, you need to be able to give more grants and more helps to the society keep running their stuff, which I think that's important. And in terms of the communication, which like as well talk about, that's the point we've been struggling for, I think, for the last few years, and I can tell that he's been improved a lot for the last, even this year, and how I can tell because I can see that. So yeah, I think that's the main point, like communication needs to be more spread up, so everyone can know what we are doing and which progress we're doing for the students, and that's the main point. So yeah.
Thank you. I'll go Grace and then Michael.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the reps, money part at the minute. So we have, when the full executive committee is elected, roughly is it 63 or 64 people, which I mean is something in itself. But also that number of people have £5,000 between them to use for the year. The full-time officer campaigns are quite big. For example, Let's Be Honest, the mental health campaign that's been going on, that's cost us, I don't know exact figures right now, but it's about £500 already. And that's like our banners and posters and things like that. So the campaigns are quite intensive, to fund and price, and only having £5,000 between about 63, 64 people isn't at the end of the day very much money at all. And if we can expand the grant pot with the policy that's being put through, then that would make more room for other societies to grow and to create a start.
Thank you. Michael?
Well, firstly, Jamie brought up one that I hadn't even thought about, so thanks for bringing up that, Jamie. And the other one is, your main points, or some of the main points, appear to be that the roles are currently too admin-based, and that doesn't seem to be necessarily being addressed by the role change. So is there some background work that's not being done? And one of the other things that came out of the survey was that there wasn't enough prominence and knowledge of who and what the officers did, and how is that being addressed by these changes, which is another main thing that it was.
So when we went to the unis, we went to Salford, Staffordshire and Middlesex, that was one of, we had like tons of questions for them, and one of those was, do your students actually know who you are? Because we don't feel like a large number of our students know who we are, which is the problem. And they said that they very much did, because they got buy-ins from their schools and faculties there. So let's take if let's say they had FST as a faculty in theirs, the officer would go at the beginning of the year and be like, "Hi, I'm the FST rep, it's nice to meet you, I want to work with you." And that rep would be invited to every induction talk, just like we do induction talks like as we do at the beginning of the year now, but like very specifically all of the FST talks. They would be referred to by, like, we would have students referred to them by people in the faculty. They would do a lot more kind of within the faculty with the student experience teams and with the 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 deputy deans for like academic or for postgraduate students or whatever. They would get involved in lots of different aspects of the faculty, and that made them a lot more known, particularly the students in that faculty. I'll grant you, not like the whole student body, but if every officer was getting known, the idea that lots of students knew at least one officer, I personally think it's a good thing because everyone has one point of contact with the SU. And I've forgotten the first thing you said. So
the first one was, it keeps getting raised that the current roles are too admin-based, and how is that going to be addressed? Because surely you're still doing the same things, but...
Yeah, that's fair. And so we started with a change in our rec department. So we have, what we had at the beginning of this year was 2 rec coordinators, one based in Cambridge and one based in Chelmsford. And then what we moved to quite recently is having 3 rec coordinators, 1 being part-time and 2 being full-time. One of them represents FST and LABS, another one represents part-time ALSS, and the other one represents FMS and FHSE full-time. We've kind of been monitoring how that's going and seeing, how that's been. They've been having particular relationships. They've been doing all the training for their faculty, all the contact with their reps. Hopefully the reps in the room will agree with me. I've seen it being really positive so far. I've seen a lot more people come into the office, a lot more people that want to get involved in things, and that's kind of been one way that we've changed our staff structure that will kind of take the load off. It's definitely took a load off me, who as education officer is responsible as an officer for all the reps. It's been fantastic support, and I think we're looking at similar things to like all around.
Thank you. Jamie?
Yeah, I'm a bit late to the game now, but just to counter Grace's point on how much the rep committee would get, it would be interesting to divvy up that into each individual and how much money they get compared to all of the committee members and how much money they would get as individuals out of the budget. So if we split it into each rep gets this exact amount of money, and then we split it into this all of the committees on all campuses get an exact amount of money out of the grant pot, it'd be interesting to see who would wind up with more money, because I have a feeling it might be the reps.
Okay.
In terms of like outcome.
Sure. Thanks, Jamie. Darryl?
Sorry to jump in, I couldn't not. But you work as a committee together, you're not just one person. And so although that's a really interesting point, I'm sure that possibly the reps would end up with more money per person, but it's not about that. It's about who runs things and who does quality campaigns with the money that they've got and who works in teams as terms of societies and clubs, and they use their committee structures well, rather than pounds per person. I think is quite reductionist, unfair way of looking at it.
I think it's very to the point and factual, but the societies are concerned about how much money they're going to get and how they're going to use it.
Okay.
And I think that we should talk about it as bluntly as we can.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Jamie. Darryl? Lee?
Thank you very much. My own contribution is based on the 5 elected officers who are full-time. If you look at the positions, I welcome the idea, it's a good idea. But I'm more concerned on then you have health and social care, education, and medical science. This is a massive department, very, very massive. If you group this department together, you are not giving them other chances like other departments. Because you can see the business is single here. There are few students in business, so with due respect. That's my view. So how will be of your opinion if you can look into it again and see where you can remove one of the departments from the main education and place them under business. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Lee, yeah?
So the only reason they are together is because we don't feel it would be beneficial for the president to have a faculty. And obviously we only currently have funding for 5 officers. We have spoken to each of the faculties about this, and FHSC and FMS have both raised the same concern. And obviously with the growth of the medical school and stuff, FMS as a faculty is going to grow in itself. And we will have to adapt to that if it becomes too much of a demand in the future. And they have openly said that they would be willing to help us, lobby the university for more funding for a 6th officer. So in the future, there may be the scope to split those 2 faculties into 2 officers, but we can't just take education out of that and put it into business, because education is part of FHS, the Faculty of Health, Social Care and Education. So we're doing, we're grouping the 2 that we feel obviously are the most similar out of the faculty.
So when you going back slightly to your point when you're explaining how it would work when you are the vice president for a faculty, so FST for an example, and you're going to the people FST and you're meeting with the faculty. As an interest-based society, you've been trying to reassure us that, oh no, the faculties are not going to have any influence on the societies that they might be interested in. But what you've said there really worries me, because if they've got close contact and their primary voters seems to be their own faculty.
There's a lot of noise in
So what then, the people they have main contact with is that faculty, and they have a lot of contact with their faculty, the faculty members. I'm very worried that there's going to be a conflict of interest where they're going to be forced to, in terms of being able to get more voters and be re-elected if they so wish to, or someone coming in the second year of the system feeling, well, if I want to be elected, I need to cater to that faculty that I'm voting for. And you've been because I know you've said several times, oh no, you have to hold them into accountability, but I have a feeling that there's only so much we can do when the majority of the student body is voting, no, we'd rather have someone who's focusing on this society and this society, interest-based societies, and I just think that's going to really restrict interest-based societies and push them away, and then the most infused people you have will then disappear, and I think that will negatively affect the overall engagement you have in the student body.
Okay, thanks for your questions. Again, just to note that we're running out of time, so is there any further comments about part-time role?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very well in the middle, so do let me know if I'm not properly responding to your question. But this, obviously the change doesn't mean that it's only faculty-based. Obviously the officer will still run on a manifesto, and they can put anything in that manifesto, like I can put in a mental health campaign, working with course-fit societies, and I don't know, improving the rep system. And when I got elected, even if I was ALSS vice president, would still be able to work on all those different things outside the faculty that either went across different groups or was just involved in one. I think yeah, some people will think strategically when they're running for election, like how will I get these people to vote for me? And I mean that's part of running an election. How am I going to get people to want me over somebody else? But I think we all agree that the whole student body doesn't just care about academic representation. If somebody just ran on that, I don't know if they would get very far unless they were running for my role. You know what I mean? I think it gives a wider portfolio to people. Like for example, I'm heading up the mental health campaign that we're doing because I really wanted us to do a mental health campaign, and everyone else wanted to do one as well because it's really important. But that's pretty much one. It's not the only way I'm not doing academic stuff, but most of my time is like in committees and things, and being able to dip outside of that is really refreshing to me because all of my student time was running societies and stuff like that. So it's nice to be able to actually do more than one thing, and I think that's going to be really good for future officers.
Yeah? Can I just say to everyone that everyone's looking at this as what's going wrong if this happens. But try to think of what's going right and what's going better if this happens. And look at it that way and weigh the pros and cons and see how it works. I would suggest to everyone that has any doubts about anything.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to make a comment. So what you're saying is that with the admin, Mike brought it up earlier, that you've got new roles specifically going to certain faculties. that having 5 people, 1 for each faculty, will improve the coordination that you're already getting from your admins with those roles? Because you're saying that you're getting more responses from them than the admins alone. When you've got a rep, they're going to get you're hoping to get a greater response to that faculty, and therefore more students knowing who you are and interaction. Is that really what you're basically fitting everything to go into? We started with faculties, now we're going to carry on with this theme because it seems to be working.
It's
Seems the gist of it.
So it's what came out of the research. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. Can I have a piece of paper?
What was this the research that decided, or gave you the idea to have admins to take to the facilities, or faculty, sorry, or is this something completely different? You had this idea separately for admins to help out?
The research of the democracy review that started this whole thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we kind of put that onto the rep coordinators to fit that one into the system, just to see how it would go, and it is going quite well. And
So you've actually had a little sort of a tester of it, it's worked, and it's going better. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much. Again, we'll be around afterwards. Voting will be open for 24 hours after this meeting's finished. I think it would be prudent to move on to the next bylaw. And I'd like to hand over to Lee again to introduce that.
Right. Okay, so the second bylaw is bylaw 2, and we are proposing to split the executive committee into 2 bodies. So it'll be the faculty voice committee and the liberation, equality, diversity and inclusion committee. That will sound cooler, like lead-eye or lead-eye or something like that. Each with a clearer role, remit and responsibilities, because does anyone have any questions? It's all written down, so does anyone have any questions?
Is there any questions anywhere? Yeah. Michael?
Are we able to vote on individual bylaws? Sorry, I should have asked this earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all separate. They're not
all
just
separate.
under the democracy review.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's all. Thank you.
Cool. Does anyone else have any questions?
Sorry, the full-time and the part-time, what we just spoke about is one bylaw. That's bylaw 11.
Yeah, I got that. It was just the, Thank you.
Right.
Fantastic. Anybody have any questions or comments about bylaw 2, about splitting up the executive committee into 2 different groups? No?
If it works for you, go for it.
Fantastic. All right, that's cool. Again, we'll be around later if anyone thinks of something later on. And I'd like to move on to then bylaw 4, to alter the timing and election and time of office of faculty reps. Again, I'd like to hand over to Lee to explain that.
Oh, it's me again. Okay. So bylaw 4. We are proposing to bring the faculty rep election in line with the full-time officer and the campaign rep election in March. Currently it's in October, if I'm right saying that, alongside the course rep elections, but obviously with the faculty reps being on the faculty voice committee with the full-time officers, we feel it would be good for them to be elected in March, and then they can kind of get a head start over the summer, meet the officers, think about the kind of things they want to work on throughout the years. They're not coming in October, being elected, and then being thrown into the big world of being a rep. So that is kind of the reason for that. Do anyone have any questions?
Great, so Michael?
Okay, so just a couple of things. One is, with regard to training and stuff, that there's going to be enough, it's not going to put too much of an extra load on, considering that the new, maybe at the right level, right? Yeah, the new executives will also be being trained at that point. There's enough, I want to say, people to go around, or enough time to go around. It's not going to put too much load on basically moving these from where they are now to somewhere else.
Grace?
Basically it's to make it much easier in a sense, because if we train all of our part-time reps together, it just makes our lives easier, and it means that when it comes to the rep elections in October, we don't have faculty reps and course reps in the same room. We're trying to balance between 2 different types of reps, and we can do a specific training for faculty reps and do that at the same time as the rest of the part-time officers, so that they kind of get into being a big kind of committee together.
That accounted for, I think it's a great idea, because everybody, by the sounds of it, will actually be able to hit the ground running all at the same time. And starting early with these things is so the right answer.
Fantastic. Alright, sorry, Maya?
Can I just say that this is a very good way to do things, because I got elected to be a campaign rep in March last year. And it was good to meet every one of the execs over the summer and think about what we want to do, which you don't really have time to do if you get elected in October. It is very, very good change.
Fantastic. Any further questions or comments about bylaw 4? No. Excellent. Cool. So I will move on to bylaw number 9, which is the final one, to introduce new subcommittees to our board of trustees. I'll hand over to Grace to introduce that.
Cool. Basically, the way our trustee board works right now is that there's 6 meetings in a year, and all our trustees get together 6 times a year for like a 3-hour meeting, just to talk about finance, risk and governance of the Students' Union and any financial implications of policies and things like that. We did a review of our governance. Me and our chief executive worked on it, just to make sure that, like, you know, we're reviewing the democracy, we're rebranding, might as well go for the whole hog and do everything, right? So we had a look at that, see how it was going. It's pretty decent, to be fair, but we've come up with a few things that we thought would be better. So what a lot of other students' unions of the country do is their trustees have subcommittees of the board, so that they're like people who are specialists that come and look at these different things, and then make a recommendation to the actual board. And it means that the board's making a better decision and everyone's fully equipped, we have more expert opinions, and we also have more students involved, so we get more students onto these subcommittees. So the committees that we're proposing to bring in, there's 4 of them, is a remuneration committee. So that's to review the pay in terms of contract, in terms of employment of the full-time officers. An appointments and governance committee, which speaks for itself, our appointments of staff and the governance of the union would be a focus of that group. The finance and risk committee, obviously look at our finance, but also the strategic risk of what we do day to day, as well as financial risk for that. And the last one is the HR and employment engagement committee, and just make sure that we're good employers and that we're doing the best things we can for our staff. So that's it.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any questions or comments about that? Michael?
So a couple of things. One is the how much power will these committees have? Do they directly report to the trustees? That's the word, or do they have some degree of autonomy?
They have. I mean, the final decision is made by the board of trustees rather than one of the subcommittees. The subcommittees will go away and talk about things, and they'll have cyclical things they talk about, like our risk register, which is like a list of all the risks we possibly encounter. And then they would make a recommendation to trustees and be like, this is what we think the risk register should look like for the next 2 years. And the trustee board will go, yeah, that looks really good, or they'll go, actually, you've missed off this, I think maybe we could talk a bit more about this, we'll refer that back to the committee to look at that, or we'll disagree with it completely. And then the trustees are kind of like, the committees are kind of like advisors to the board, if that makes sense.
And the other thing was, do they have the power, if they do come up with something that's an issue, to call additional meetings for the trustees, or is it still going to be sat at the fixed meetings?
I think it's just the fixed meetings for the committees, but I think that I'm not quite sure. I assume that the trustee board would be able to call another meeting of the committee if needs be. I think it would be more likely that a meeting, and they're called extraordinary meetings because it's a meeting outside of the normal schedule. I think it's more likely that an extraordinary trustee board would be called by the people who are trustees that have voting rights.
We're just now going to move on to the executive officer reports. We'll take them as read, they're all written down here, but each officer may choose to go over sort of the headlines, and then they'll ask if anyone has any questions. We are going to take a break after that, so if you can power through for now, that would be great. So I'm first, so my 3 priority campaigns and objectives that I ran on was representation in sport, a visibility campaign, and space. Do I really need to go through it all? I don't know. Do you want me to go through stuff, or are you happy to have just read it?
Brilliant. What's a brief for representation
Okay,
sport?
so representation sport, I am looking to try and work with Activandia to create some kind of representation within the sport department, so it's pretty much in the name. Because currently there's kind of none of that. They have committee members for their sports teams, but their voices aren't really heard that much. They've started to make a step in the right direction. They've introduced some forums where Stu's went to and said it was good, which is great. But what they do with that, I don't know, because they're not experts in presentation and we are. So if we can help them in any way, that'd be great. We're looking to, well, we started writing a memorandum of understanding, which we will sort of sign off, and then that will be what we work in partnership against, pretty much. And then if we, like what I was saying earlier about the forum chair thing, if we can introduce that within sport, that would be great. So you have an elected sports club member or committee member chairing those forums and then being invited into their internal meetings within Activandia. So the student voice is being heard at every level and they're making decisions. So basically encouraging them to be more proactive rather than reactive to students complaining about them not listening. Get there on that. If you want to help, please do. It'd be great. Visibility campaign, we did quite a lot of stuff throughout the welcome period. There were pictures of us everywhere. I hope you all saw it. And yeah, we came up with an accountability agreement as well, which is in here. I'm sorry if you can't read it, but it will be, I'm not sure if it's on the website right now, but it will be on the website, please have a look. And then all of the space updates, what we've been campaigning for, we go into the national demo on Saturday to fight against the cuts in education as a whole and the rising fees, because no one wants to pay any more than £9,000 any more than we want to pay £9,000. You can still come along if you want to. We're selling tickets for £5, and then we cover the rest of the costs. So if you want to come and march with us, please do. And obviously, let's be honest, our mental health campaign, Grace will go into a bit more detail on that later. And then what I put in my report this time was, I'm always complaining that I have to go to tons of meetings and I'm always cooped up in different rooms. I missed a bit, but I'll go back. But I never really tell anyone what meetings I go to, so I've written down all the meetings that I go to, the main university meetings, and kind of what they are, and then I'm trying to do this thing where I summarise the notes from the meeting in like 60 seconds. It's proving difficult, but I'm trying, and then I'm going to put all of those on the website. So if you are interested in what happens in meetings, you can read up on it. It's not that exciting. And then yeah, as the day-to-day updates, as president, I'm automatically a governor on the University Board of Governors, which is fun. Went to a conference to try and help me be able to understand the world of university governance, which is also fun. I went to a board away day with the governors in October, and that's where we started to talk about the direction that ARU is going to take over the next 5 to 10 years, I think it is. Obviously with the new Vice Chancellor, he's going to be writing a new corporate plan. There's going to be a consultation document put out at the end of this month, and the governors and the Vice Chancellor is encouraging all students, community members and staff to feed into that. So we're going to play a huge part in trying to get you guys to feed in and tell them what you want university to look like over the next few years, especially if you're first year. That'd be great. You're going to feed in. So yeah, that's my update. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Oh, I have a comment.
Okay.
It's kind of more of a shout out. Obviously this is my second year as anything to do with the university. So in terms of, I read Lee's update and was like, oh wow, she does way more than I even knew that she did. That's insane, because she's always in meetings and we never see her. But I just wanted to kind of give her a little bit of a shout out and be like, she's been doing a 10 out of 10 job in terms of being a president and doing all of the stuff and the support that she gives us. You guys, so Lee would not put in her update that she supports us as officers because we're all our own people and we all do really well on our own and blah, blah, blah. But Lee is like 10 out of 10, so I just wanted to be like, thank you for not only supporting students but supporting officers as well, because I don't think that we say that to you enough. Little cute moment, soz.
Thank you.
I think students should know that you're good.
Okay, next one is Grace.
Cool. So I've had 4 main things that I'm working on at the minute. So the first one is Let's Be Honest, our mental health campaign. The second one is getting a guarantor scheme that's run by ARU. The third one is open access, which is an area in Cambridge, which is basically just a bunch of computers that is a bit stained and manky. And the fourth one is really, politely named TEFOF, and I will explain that more when I get to it. So let's be honest, this has been hopefully everywhere. We hope everyone's seen it because we've done a lot with it, and the branding looks absolutely sick, so I'm quite excited about it. I'll talk about what is, I suppose, next for us really, because, or next on the bits I've been doing, because I've got an update for that separately in a bit. So we're going to be creating a report of data from the survey that hopefully everybody did. We got over 2,000 responses, which was fantastic, and we are going to be putting in some more meetings with the MP to talk about like local mental health provisions, particularly in Cambridge, because it's one of the worst places in the country for mental health provision. In case you didn't know, we should all know that because we should all be angry about that. And yeah, I'll talk about that one a bit more in the separate update, because the whole team's been working on that and it's been really good. The ARU ran guarantor scheme is something that we started talking about last year, and particularly benefiting national students. I've been meeting with our accommodation service to talk about this and what the next steps are. I talked to the Vice Chancellor. He said, yeah, put a good enough case forward and we'll do it. So I have put a good enough case together, I think, and that is ready to present to him at our next meeting. We have like monthly meetings as a team with him. So I'm going to present that soon, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully well, because I have spent too long on the phones to universities talking about things I don't understand. But the paper looks great, so I'll let you know what happens there. And the other thing to do with that is looking at ARU recommended landlords and seeing if they actually should be on that list or not. Whether they're actually good or not, or if the properties we're endorsing are good or not. I am so aware of how much students get ripped off in Cambridge, because I've been ripped off in Cambridge, and in Chelmsford I've heard some horror stories as well, so that'd be really good. I'll take a question at the end of my report, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Open access, I ran a survey and I did some Facebook statuses and some talking to people. So I got roughly 100 students recently that told me that open access was pretty crap, to be honest. It needs some improving, generally awful. So I put together a report on that, and basically what was in there is we need new chairs, the carpet needs to be cleaned, make all the computers the same, give them the same software, have a member of staff in there. There was lots and lots of recommendations in there. And I took it to the university, ready to fight, and they said, yes, that sounds great, we'll do it all. And I was a bit like, what? So basically my task now is to hold them to their promise, make them find the money, and make somebody have ownership of that area. So the library is probably who I would recommend for that, and make sure that those changes actually happen. So the good news from that is that they want to make all the changes that everybody wants, which is great, and the next bit is me actually making sure they stick to their promise, which I'm sure that they will. My last part of my report is TEFOF. So in autumn, in 2015, the government proposed something called the Teaching Excellence Framework, and that is, it's part of a big higher education bill that's kind of going through Parliament at the minute. It's going to its like third reading. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but it means lots of people have debated it about a lot of different things, and it's intense, and those recommendations that I want to go through have gone through, which is great. But because we responded last year to the consultation on it and put forward a view as the Students' Union on it, and some of those changes have been made because we put in that consultation, which is great. I love ARU. So a lot of what this is the Teaching Excellence Framework wants to rise fees in line with quality, and they measure quality on the National Student Survey, something called the DELI, which is the Destination of Leavers from Higher Education Survey, and student retention, so like numbers, who stays here, who progresses, blah blah blah. I don't think any of that really reflects what good teaching is, because you might leave because you're a carer and you've got too much responsibility, you can't take on more at university. In the NSS, I know a lot of people write, we want an SU bar, and that has nothing to do with teaching quality. And in the Delhi, I mean, you might end up with any job after university. It doesn't necessarily have to be to do with your degree. Let's say you had like, you know, a midlife crisis and you wanted to go and do something else in Australia with monkeys instead of something on data analysis. Like, I wouldn't blame you, first of all, and also it has nothing to do with the quality of teaching you had in that degree. So I don't like that this exists because I don't think it's an accurate measure of teacher quality, and I think it's going to rise fees for the wrong reasons. But I think all reasons are the wrong reasons to rise fees because I don't believe in tuition fees. Awkward. And generally they're going to do this thing where they rank universities as like bronze, silver, or gold in the UK, and I feel like it's really patronising. I don't think it's actually. It's just like, oh, well done, you're a silver university. It's like, no, I don't think it's. I think the whole thing's crap. So basically, TEFOF, the Teaching Excellence Framework, wants to leave, and that's kind of what I've been working on. So the university are taking part in the Teaching Excellence Framework because every university is taking part in it because it's become a big national thing. And the next steps I want to do is making sure students are aware as possible when they're filling out these pieces of data, like the NSS, of what that's going towards and the fact that that might raise their fees for reasons that I don't think are good enough. So it's kind of in here saying that I don't have a concrete plan in place. There will be something in place, and I hope you will all tell me what you think of what that should be. Probably not in here because we're all a bit stuffy in here, but like that would be really great to get some feedback, and I'm going to hopefully run some focus groups and stuff.
I had a general question about, is this for home EU fees or is this for international fees as well? Because I was surprised last January when I went to pay my tuition fees and found out they'd been raised by £3,000 and there was no warning. And I already pay about $10,500 a year, and they got raised again last year, and I'm a little concerned that they're going to get raised again in January. And then if I have this teaching excellence framework adding on to it, I'm going to be ridiculously broke. So is this for both home and international fees?
I'm so sorry that you had that experience. That's so crap. It's just for home fees at the minute. They don't know extend it to everybody basically, which is really crap. Yeah, they already treat international students like shit in terms of fees. So I'm really sorry for you for that. So
that's alright. So they'll probably raise them anyway, but not because of the teaching excellence framework.
Yeah, not because of this. At least not in the next 3 years. So you'll probably be okay. Can I pick somebody to go next? Because I can see lots of people in
of course.
Yeah.
The RAN guarantor scheme. What is it?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
Basically, when you rent in the UK, I'm sure everybody in here will know, you need a UK-based guarantor. So that's somebody who will go down on paper saying that if you don't pay your rent, they will pay it for you, or they will be liable for the fact that you haven't paid your rent because you're a student and landlords don't think you're reliable enough to pay your own rent, which is something I also think is patronising, but never mind. If you are an international student, or if you are estranged from your family, if you're a care leaver, if you're old enough that you don't have parents around, it's going to be hard to find a guarantor, and especially a UK-based one, obviously, if you're an international student. So there are schemes around the UK where people will be your guarantor for you for a price. They will stick on a massive price tag and they'll make you pay so much money to have this service. I think that ARU should run their own guarantor scheme, and that they should only charge students something like 30 quid, and that money would go back into making the guarantor scheme actually work. And I know that ARU has ways of mitigating these risks already because we have our accommodation services, and if students default on their rent, there's already procedures in place. I think this could be naturally replicated to a guarantor scheme. We wouldn't be the first university in the country to make one. There's already about 8 or 9, and obviously I've been calling them all up. Only one of them, sorry, I think it's 1 or 2, have had people default on their rent, and it's been a fairly smooth process when they have. And they've often done like trial years and then kind of changed how much they charge, whether they're charged all, whether they offer it to first year students, things like that. So I've kind of came up with a list of what I think is fair of things. So I think accommodation should, the guarantor scheme should be offered to first year students. I think if it was £30 to enter the scheme, that money could go back into things like regulated properties and things like that. And Yeah, that's essentially what it is.
Do you require, because I came in a different way, do you actually require a guarantor for uni accommodation at the moment? Or?
I think you do. I'm not sure. I lived in CB1, so.
I'm not sure about on-site places, but you do in private places.
In the private ones,
Mhm,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't think you do it on-site.
Unless you pay it all up front.
That's pretty
well, there's always that, I guess.
Actually, to be fair, some of them still want a guarantor if you pay all up front. Because there's damage to the
You've
building.
said it as you want, it's only for, like, you want it to be for first year students, but quite a lot of work for like international second and third year students who maybe are going to stay on campus or they need a guarantor.
Oh, sorry, I would want it for all years.
All years.
Some universities say no first years and they'll do second and third years, but what I meant by that was I want everyone to be able to use
everybody
it.
to be right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Kieran and Maya.
Speaking about TEF off quickly.
Yeah.
Speaking about how to measure teaching excellence or how to measure teaching quality among students. I actually agree that it's not effective at the moment with NSS or DELI or anything like that. I'm wondering, is there a way that the SU or the university in general could measure internal teaching quality confidentially and then pass that on to central government as a university rather than a national way?
I think there's no, right now, there's no definitive way of concretely measuring teaching excellence, which is another reason that this government change is so kind of hard to comprehend.
Right.
When it first came out, I mean, you wouldn't have believed it. It was the vaguest, weirdest piece of documentation I've ever seen. It definitely wouldn't have passed the university exam if you submitted that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're expecting universities to come to the standard that doesn't actually exist because they've got a kind of vague, wispy vision that no one can like aspire to. It's definitely more concrete since then, but I don't think it's got any better. What I think is that we need to invest in long-term studies on learning gain, and that is a measure of from your first year to your third year, if you're an undergraduate, of how much you've learnt in that period of time. Thankfully, ARU are actually smart, and we have entered a longitudinal study, so like it's a 3-year study on learning gain for people who have started in their first year now and head into their third year, and that is one good thing out of doing this, the fact that they're entering into research. And I think there's lots of other ways to measure teaching excellence, so like teaching reviews and things like that, things that are concrete, but I think there needs to be a lot more research into it. I mean, the reason it's came in is because it was a part of the Conservative manifesto, which is fine, you know, you put something in your manifesto, you're elected, whatever, I understand that.
People read it, yeah.
Exactly. I think they should have waited 3 years, done their own studies, done their own research, and then made a recommendation in the 4th year of them being in office, and then like piloted that for a year, and then the 5th year done that. And you can't take something like teaching excellence like so lightly as they have done. I think education is so important, and I think they've just disregarded it completely just to put something controversial on a manifesto. But I'm veering into party politics, so I will stop.
Yeah, about the NSS, I had an SLC meeting and the faculty revised the results about every course that is to do with media and film. And the funny thing is that most of them were 100%, like they were satisfied with the course and the teaching and everything. And the lowest one was about personal development, which was 69 out of 100, which was very sad to see. Students feel like they don't progress throughout their course.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the question around the NSS is like, which bits do you pick out as measures of teaching quality and which bits don't you? And they've kind of done that. They've picked a few questions that they would measure, but they've also kind of said in some latest pieces that like the NSS isn't as important as before. They've also said they don't think the Students' Union being on board with the Teaching Excellence Framework is as important anymore, but I think that's because they don't want a student voice in creating a Teaching Excellence Framework or creating a really vague thing called the Office for Students that they're making as like a government department. I think they don't want us to talk about what we think good teaching excellence is, even though I think we're pretty expert in that because we're the ones being taught. So yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
In regards to TEFOS, is the study that we've entered based on courses individually or the whole university? Surely some putting in different to others.
You know what, I'm not quite sure. It's based on the whole university, I think. I don't think it's course specific. I think it's just kind of learning specific rather than like what the knowledge actually is, just how much have you learned. I don't know a lot of detail on it, but I know it's heading in the right direction. I can find some if you want.
Yeah, because it's just that if you look at different ratings, like if you were Which, say the Guardian puts on ARU lower because of 2 courses. Say something like Which does it on individual courses rather than. So surely if you did quite an individual course study, then the rating would be higher than, better than the generalised one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with you.
The guarantor scheme that you're trying to come up with, are you planning on implementing that for the next academic year?
That's the dream.
Okay.
If I've taken it to our next meeting with the Vice Chancellor, that's going to be like, what, December time? So it depends whether I'm told that's too quick a semester and it would have to come in for the year after that. I'd like it to be into the next academic year, yes, but that might not happen.
Oh, and Kat, do you want to do your report?
Absolutely. Cool. So, obviously my report's been on the website as everyone else's has. Got some update on policy which I can go into later, but I've basically broken it down by my priority projects that I'm working on based on my manifesto, and then another project, and then basically about the meetings that I go to, which hopefully kind of makes it clear about how I'm spending my time and which places that I'm going to work on things for you guys. Again, I can take questions about those later on. What I'm going to start with though is safer taxis, which is probably my personal favourite. So currently I've compiled a report on various safe taxi schemes going up across the country. Like loads of different universities do them. Some have been doing them for like 10 different years. I don't understand why we don't have one yet because they're fantastic. So I've been speaking to 2 different firms in Cambridge and Chelmsford who've expressed kind of interest, but I'll be looking for more student feedback on kind of like what they'd like to see a firm doing and how accessible these firms could be. And also we go on to a meeting with the Director of Student Services to talk about the ID cards, and the ID cards are a fundamental part of the safe taxi schemes and making that work. So all these things are happening, and my aim is to have that done, obviously, by the time I leave this year. So that's something that's happening. Happening very soon, in fact, next week. So wish me luck. Next up, I've got the buddy scheme. So currently I'm contacting various people that are already running these. So these people are usually like dotted about in different societies, different departments. Basically, I want to see what they're doing, so see how well they're helping students and what they're like, because I know the university wants to run a centralized scheme, and I don't think that there's much communication between the central department and everyone else that's doing lots of different things, and I want to make sure this works for actually everyone. And if these schemes have to be different for different places, then great, that's what they're going to do. This is all about what the students want. I don't want it to be something that's put up in a room and that students haven't had any input on, because if our students are already working on it, they should be inputting into what the university wants to do in the whole. And this has come out really recently. I'm working with the university and several lecturers and students about a response to the UUK report on sexual violence. One of the big recommendations out of that was to come up with a task force and to create a policy for the university to adhere to provide proper support for people that have been victims of sexual violence. And part of that would include providing like people that are trained to deal with victims of sexual violence, who can like sit and listen to them, be able to signpost them in the right direction and actually offer them support. So it would be in terms of like, training perhaps people in our wellbeing and counselling services to kind of increase the support they can get from there, not just telling people, oh, just go to the police, because that is not good enough for our students. Yeah. If anyone has any specific questions about that, feel free to ask me later on. And now I've kind of moved into the portion of my report, which is divvied up by different meetings that I go to. So Equality, Diversity and Inclusion is a group that the university have, which I sit on as welfare officer. Part of my gender neutral toilet policy is being discussed there, which you can talk about later. But one of the other most important things is an issue regarding trans students' names, and basically a lot of this is an administration issue, but trans students have been referred to by their legal name instead of their known as name, which they can put down on forms to be referred to. But basically there's been a horrendous administration mix-up where they've been referred to by their legal names, which hasn't been changed to the name they prefer. And letters obviously get sent out to people, and so people could be outed. You know, this causes distress for people. So I'm currently working with our trans rep to basically make sure that the university has like a clear policy on this and to make it work, and so nobody has to go through the horror of being outed to people like their housemates or people they don't know. As well as that, I'm working on a disability audit with Grace and with our disabled reps basically to look at the physical accessibility of all the buildings across all our campuses. So we'll be working on that soon, and as well as that, a disabled students charter. So currently we have a students charter, which I'm sure you all took one look at and thought, I'll read that later on. No one does, I never did. But basically the disabled student charter would go alongside that, and it would be a list of what the university can provide while they study here in terms of different forms of support and how they can access that. It's just a really quick, easy, simple document that would go alongside the student charter. So it wouldn't be buried in a load of paperwork. It would be really easy to find, which is what we want, accessibility. And as well as that, there's an inclusive assessment working group, which is sitting on that with Grace. So what that's going to start looking into is different forms of inclusive assessment for different students, basically to try and make sure that students are getting the most out of their studies, that assessments are actually assessing people on the skills they need to have as part of their courses, part of their different modules. Overall, what the university wants to do is create banks of good practice, and so we have like basically a catalogue, I guess, to go off for the future. So it's kind of a very, very long-term kind of thing, but right now these conversations are quite early, so I'll be able to update you in more detail probably the next council. And finally, this is also super new, but basically myself and also Grace is looking into the on-campus medical centres. So obviously know that there's a lot of issues with those right now, but these meetings obviously are quite new, but going forward what I'll be doing is taking regular student feedback to those meetings, making sure that all the changes that are going to be made are definitely in the students' interest, so the services work the way you want them. Any questions or comments?
Can you explain what the Safer Taxi system actually is?
Awesome, I can. So, in a nutshell, what the Safer Taxi scheme generally is that, say at night time you didn't have any money to get home, you could give your student card to a taxi driver, they'd take you home, but they'd take your card as payment. And then they'd return your card to the university, and the university would pay the fee into the card, and then you'd come back and you would pay the fee for your card back so you could tap in and various different things.
Thanks very much, Kat. And we'll move on to Jamie.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm aware that this has been an extremely long first portion of the meeting, but it's just me and Precious, and then you can have a drink and it'll be okay. So just bear with us. I will properly take this as read, so I hope you've all read it. I'm going to quickly just whistle stop through it, and I can see the SU live tweeting everything that we're saying, and she's just tweeted about me, so I'm a bit like, okay. So, as part of the Let's Be Honest Mental Health campaign, myself and Precious have done a Be a Friend social, which is where any student is more than welcome to come in, sit down, have a cup of tea, a coffee. In Cambridge, we run it as part of a craft afternoon, which is where you can come, make crafts, just chill out, talk about things that have stressed you out. We had a really nice chat in the last one about certain things that you wouldn't consider as triggering, but that trigger people, and that people should be a little bit more aware of, and it was a really interesting conversation to have, and I came out of it feeling a lot better and a lot less stressed. So it worked for me, and it could work for you, so feel free to come to the next one. We did that, and we raised a bit of money. It was really successful. I'll let Precious go into the Chelmsford one, because I think that the Chelmsford one's turnout was like insane. I would love for Cambridge to do that next time, so I'll be sending you all emails, keep an eye out. So, keep Wednesday afternoons free. This is a policy that you all saw me frantically running around Freshers Fair to talk to you about, if you are a committee member, and I've probably ranted at some people that aren't committee members too. This is basically a policy to put through so that from 12 p.m. on a Wednesday, there will be no timetabled lectures for any students. Active Anglia currently have a policy put in place to say that if you're on a sports team and you compete in bucks, you can go to your lecturer and say, look, I can't come to this lecture, I want to participate in these extracurricular activities. Please can you give me all of the means that I need so that I can, so pieces of the lecture, material, any notes, things like that. So the student is well within their right to not go to that lecture, and the lecturer has to provide all of this stuff. You know what I mean? I think that all students should have that, and I think it would be also really good for mental health, for clubs and societies, for meeting your personal tutors, for lecturers to meet other lecturers, for the high-end meetings to happen, for all of the meetings to happen. It just frees up that little bit of extra space. Past that. So, women's friendly hour in the gym. This is something that, as we really eloquently put it, I've been trying to work with Active Anglia on. I think that, so this is something that wasn't necessarily in my manifesto when I first started, but while I was campaigning, I literally had a ridiculous amount of students say I would use the gym if I felt comfortable. And I was like, okay, perfect. Let's make the gym comfortable. So Stuart, our sports rep, that was cute, is also helping me on that, and we're just gathering some feedback at the moment from students, and we're working on the ongoing issue with the accessibility of the gym. We're going to continue to do that until we do hopefully get a women's friendly hour in the gym. If you have any questions, again, just hand up. So up your grants, there's a policy update for that, just have a look at the resubmission. And then save our space. Yep, I'm going to continue to keep ensuring that we have space, and I'm also working on something that I've been putting a few tweets out about. The society are now talking about the optometry building in Cambridge, which in Chelmsford it's just a really bad building, and talking about how we could make it a more accessible learning space. So at the moment, if you sit in Opt 101, which again, really bad room, you can hear people running around, you can hear people talking, you can't see things. So the university are currently looking at ways that they could make all of the rooms on campus more accessible and just a better teaching environment, which is great. And I just sort of was like, how much student input have you had on that? And they were like, oh, we'd love some. So I'm putting just like a quick report together of all of the feedback that I've had. That would go into those, and then hopefully it's pretty much the same as what lecturers have been saying, funnily enough, which is quite good. And then I've literally whizzed, I'm so sorry. But a day-to-day life. So, as I've said, this has been a pretty intense part of my life, but things like meeting with clubs and societies, I've been doing all of your training. We've moved to doing weekly drip-in sessions, which have been quite good in terms of getting new societies up and running as quickly as we can. We've also been involving Jess a lot more in that, who is the societies rep in Cambridge. She's been coming along, which has been brilliant. We have welcomed loads of new societies. We've got lots of memberships. We did kind of a, guys, you don't have a lot of members, are you okay? And then all of the societies were like, actually, yeah, we're going to go get lots of members. And you guys got lots of members, and I was super chuffed. You did a really good job, and I was really proud. We've been doing Give It a Goes. We've been trying to get in as many suggestions as possible for you guys to tell us where you want to go. So please hit us up or where you want to go. I've been going to conferences and away days. I'm going to an away day in Middlesex to kind of structure the Keep Wednesday Afternoons free campaign a little bit more, so that I come back hopefully with a very clear view of a timeline of what I need to do to get that going. So I've been having one-to-ones with reps to discuss the manifesto. So all of the 5 officers have mentees. We don't have mentees. Thank you. We all have mentees in reps. So I had Druvy as one example, who ran the carbon monoxide awareness stall, and everyone was getting carbon monoxide detectors, and we were making lots of noise, and it was really fun. And it raised a lot of awareness, and just little things like that that the reps do are really beneficial. So keep a lookout for anything they're doing. We're constantly shouting about it. And yeah, it's all been quite hectic, but I'm getting there, and that's me so far, I guess. Any questions or comments? James?
Yeah, as you know, I completely support the women's hour in the gym. The issue is, are we going to be offering that as a free hour? Because, for example, if we're only offering 1 hour a week, people are going to be wanting to pay for a full gym membership to use the gym for an hour a week, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, Stuart's going to take that, because he wants to.
Yeah, so it's been one of my top ones since pretty much my first time being in the sports club. And basically what I'm hoping to get is, instead of just 1 hour a week, for it to be like several hours across the week, whether it's in the morning or in the evening on different days, so that everyone has a chance to go. If they can't make the evening hour, they can do the morning hour or the midday hour or whatever, just as long as there's a spread so that every student can go to it and doesn't get left out, essentially.
So yeah, in terms of women's friendly hour, I've called it hour because we're trying to get our toe in, and once we're in there we can expand depending on how much people use it. Laura?
First of all, you're doing a really good job because I've always heard the time. But it's about this Wednesday afternoon thing. Is it just lectures, or is it going to be seminars and labs and clinics and everything, just everything after 12 stops?
We are working on everything after 12 stops. Obviously, that's going to be very difficult for FSC, and as an FSC
Very
student,
difficult
I
for the
totally,
optometry students,
we
is
totally
the
get
reason
that.
I'm asking.
I'm going to take it as that shouldn't happen. But when they have to be lectured, when they have to be timetabled even, just like the sports teams do now, you should be able to have the opportunity to say, actually, I need to focus on my revision, or I need to focus on myself, or my society is doing this really cool thing and I want to go. Can you give me all the material? Obviously, with Optom, you can't have people, you can't test people's
we have
eyes.
clinic days,
Yeah.
and it's just, I mean, there are ways you could theoretically move the timetable, but we don't test on Wednesday, we test on a Thursday, the election in the morning instead. There is ways to do it, but they would be very reluctant to do it. So I wish you luck with it.
We will give them all the support to be less reluctant as I can.
We have a question in Chelmsford.
Hi, Chelmsford.
Then we'll move on if that's all right. So we're coming to the end of it.
Yeah, sure.
Hi Jeremy, I'm not a sports club member, but I was recently appointed in the Activang coaching academy, so I'm now the assistant coach for the men's football first and second team over here. From my understanding, and when I was a rep a couple of years ago, the Wednesday afternoon aspect was actually the university agreed to keep Wednesdays free for everybody, and I'm just obviously listening to what you said and that you're trying to work to get it to stay free, but unless it's changed, unless one of the officers can correct me if I'm wrong, it should still be Wednesday free afternoon for all sports and things like that. So I'm not sure if I misinterpreted you. I'm sorry if I have. Just clarify that for me. I've got one more thing on that after as well.
Yeah, sure. So it would be the dream that it was for everyone, but I've done a little bit of research, and Active Anglia's policy is only for BUCS completed people and anyone that's involved in Active Anglia. So that wouldn't include students, and as far as I can find in my research, there's no set in stone policy that says that timetabling. I know that the university does try and work towards that, but there's no policy that says that they will actively continue to try, and I would like them to actively continue and to not timetable.
Okay, cool. And the second one, you mentioned about the officers having mentees.
Yes.
What sort of training do you guys go through to enable you to be effective mentors, being that it is a very slightly complexly hard role to perform if you've, bearing in mind obviously officers come from the student background. Do you see where I'm going with that?
No, absolutely. So, in terms of being an officer, I think my training was like 2 months of this is how to be representative, this is how you are democratic, this is how you do this is how you do that. We are trained from the get-go. I spent 5 days in Norwich in a barn with these 5 ladies, and some of the other, we brought in people to teach us how to be democratic, people to teach us how to work as a team. All of that training is facilitated once you become an officer. So as officers, you're trained to be representatives, and then you obviously it's very easy to filter that down into training other people, and they already know how to be representatives. And I think, Grace, do you want to finish off my sentence? I feel like Grace is much more articulate than me, so.
Yep. We have training on being a mentor. It wasn't a very long session. It was just a 2-hour session on how to be a mentor, coordinated by Emma. She was one of the coordinators. But what we also have in place, because we understand that the officers are very compensated, all-knowing, is we have our staff coach reps as well. So each of our part-time reps has an officer that they can go to. They have a staff member in the student team, and they also have Megan, who will help them to run campaigns and will support them with any kind of admin-based stuff. So the level of support is quite high that we have, and hopefully it's working, because that's all pretty new. So, but I can be corrected.
But we can talk to you if you have concerns or not. We can talk to you after. We'll move on now. I just want to say really quickly before Precious does her update and then Grace does Let's Be Honest. I'm going to bring the last thing on the agenda forward, because I can see people dipping off very slightly. And that requires a vote, so I want as many people here as possible to vote. Oh yeah, no, it doesn't require a vote, it's online. But we'll talk about that now so you know what the charities are. It's quite so,
yeah. Good evening, everyone. As you have all noticed, I haven't really said anything since the meeting began, except introducing myself. This is because I've been reserving myself to give you good news. What has been going on this semester that has never happened before here in Chatsworth campus. So I'm going to start with the extracurriculum activity. Basically, you have giftable trips, which was amazing, most especially London trips. We have so many students, mostly international, who have never been to London before, so they really recommended and said they like the trip and they want us to keep doing it every year. Then we have the Club and Society Forum, which is an avenue where clubs and society come together and learn how other societies, what is the strategy they are using to get more students to join them, and what the strategy they are using to get more fund in their account. So they learn from other societies as well. So this is what this forum is all about. Then the second one is global unity. This is one of my most top priority in my manifesto. The global unity. Before, in Chatsworth, we have never celebrated Black History Month, and this really happened this semester. And this brought the staff, the university staff and students together. We all celebrated this celebration here in the lounge, the SU lounge, and there was lots of refreshments. And as you can see, it's called Black History Month, and we provided Black food, so African food, which was very remarkable. And also, I created International Society, which has never happened before in Chatsworth campus as well. And today is International Students' Day, which is a national celebration going on. And currently, our International Society is celebrating this day at the NAB 116, and refreshment is going on as we speak. So this is a good achievement for us. And also, Interfaith Week happened this week Tuesday, and this is also the first time this is happening in Chatsworth campus as well. So I can say that at Chatsworth University, with the help of the SU, we're actually going global, and it's a diverse community, as you can see. Then thirdly is the employability skill. So during the induction period, I used this opportunity to start letting the students know why employability skill is very, very important. And I started, the new students were very focused, so that as soon as they come to the university, this is already in them. They know the usefulness of this, and I created an awareness that the SU have volunteering department where they can come and volunteer and learn some skills, which is skills for life. And even after they graduate from here, they can always use it for life after the university. So also, there's an IRL certificate which the university paid for. It's £750, but it's free for all students. So when you volunteer for us, you develop 10 skills, and these 10 skills, this includes team working, we have presentation skills. So all these kind of skills accumulate for the 10 skills, and you are given this ILM certificate, and it's from an external organization and well recognized. And also, the SU, the volunteers, like I said, they have a login hour. We'll show you how to log in, and so that this proves that, and for example, now you're here, you are also volunteering, so this also adds up to your login hours. So anytime you work for us, it's valuable. So and the last one is the mental health campaign. The mental health campaign, let's be honest, my main focus is Be a Friend, which we launched on the 17th of October, and we earned £40, which we donated to the Mind Mental Health Charity. And this project was led by students, which is so unique about it. We have a society who contributed on that day, some society like cake baking. They provided cake, and they were all there talking to students, being friends to them. And I turned this campaign to an iBody scheme, which the late faculty, which I represent, because as 5 officers, we have each faculty we represent, so I represent LAPES. So LAPES provided this scheme, the I body scheme. The I there stands for international body. So I provided, as an officer, I said, coming from an experience being an international student, let me be there for them. And I went there and I tailored it to the let be a friend. And I was there for them, most especially for new international students, helping them settle down into the environment, making them feel welcome, and let the environment be like a conducive environment for them to learn. So I was there for them, and this helped them settle into their education. That's it. Any questions? I don't want a round of applause. Thank you.
Based on item B, I am certificate. Okay. How many hours do you think you can accumulate to enable you achieve that certificate? Or is it just 1 hour or 2 hours?
Well, it's not based on hours, it's based on points. So you have to have up to like 45 points. And this is how you accumulate the points. For example, if you are able to get, okay, for being a rep, because a rep, you do it within 6 months, right? Rep position is from here. It's up to here. It's 10 months. So as a rep, you have 15 points already as a rep. So you see your 45 points is not growing up yet. So when you do as an ambassador, you earn 10 points. For example, if for your faculty you decide to be an ambassador for open day, you already earn 10 points. So it's not a must that you have to have hours certificate. But I myself, I was able to achieve this certificate just within 1 year as a master's student. In master's just 1 year, I was able to achieve it. So it's achievable even within 1 year.
And moving on to Grace to just, if you can, quickly talk through the Let's Be Honest project plan and update.
I will be super quick. Basically, what's happened so far is we have a web page that's got all the campaigns, aims and objectives on. So that's just our website and then slash Let's Be Honest if you want to look at it. It's got like our video trailer and 30 years of self-care social media campaign. Those are 2 things that happened throughout the month. 30 days of self-care just ended and I thought that went really well. Shout out to everybody that did all 30 days because I didn't. And then I wrote an article about it. Hope that made it fun. And we've had 6 students write articles for the website about their mental health or their experiences with mental health at university, and they have been really eye-opening and really good. So if you wanted to have a look at them, they're online. If you want to write one, even better, please do get in touch. Like, we're still accepting like articles and stuff. Or if you want to write about something else, like just write articles for us, that'd be great. And we launched our Be a Friend events, which I'll list a little bit because Jamie and Precious did some wonderful descriptions and they went really well. We raised some money, which is the main thing, spreading the love, and we're going to be doing some more again next semester. Our survey, when we submitted this update, had just under 1,000 students complete it, and I can happily tell you now that I've had over 2,000 students complete it, which is sick. So that's close now. We finished doing the survey. We need to sit down, go through all the data and actually turn it into recommendations and into solid ways to talk about the experiences of students at ARU and an experience of their mental health. Some of the stats that are in here, put from quite early on but haven't changed particularly. A majority of students found that stress was one of their biggest worries, closely followed by anxiety. And some of the biggest problems contributing to their mental health has been fees and finance and social isolation. 2 really worrying statistics, and we will obviously get our full report where you can read about everything, and everything that was put in those surveys is going to be kept anonymous. Our next steps, obviously the report. I'm going to be doing some project planning groups for students that want to play a bigger role in the campaign. So maybe you want to come and lead part of the campaign, or you want to just come and like help coordinate a Be a Friend launch, or something like that. It would be absolutely fantastic to get anyone involved. and those dates are in my officer report, I think. If they're not, they're definitely on the website in our events calendar, and they're coming up in the next few weeks. So they'll be really good, hopefully you can make it. We're going to be getting some external speakers in to give presentations on mental health issues. I had a meeting with a lovely woman today who's just created an app called Headspace in Cambridge, and she is wonderful, and she's going to come in and hopefully do some talks for us, and she's very excited about that. We're going to be, obviously, June's doing a lot on when staffing's free, which we think is integral to people's mental health, having a space and a dedicated amount of time where you do whatever you want. It doesn't have to be like sort of like playing sports, like releasing endorphins and things like that. Just being able to take time for you out of your week at university. And I'm also going to be creating a personal tutor toolkit on how to approach students if you've got a problem, how to talk to students when they come to you, and general support for university staff on how to, work with mental health and students that have mental health, and just make everything better. So that would be good. And there is an absolute ton of other things that will hopefully come out of these project groups. If you can think of something that isn't in here and you want to do it, we will help you do it. If it's something you want us to do, like, we're so open. We want this to be your campaign as much as it is an officer campaign. This is the campaign of like us in this room, and everyone, really, without being cheesy. And we've also got a project definition form attached to this, which is a really boring way of saying every single possible thing that we have planned so far, and a Gantt chart of timelines. And I hate Gantt charts, so you might not want to look at it or whatever. That whistle's not too rough.
Just the last thing that's on the agenda I'll talk about now, so if you do have a break and you disappear, you'll be up to speed. The NSS is completed every year by every student in third year, and for each response, money will be donated to a charity, and we've been asked to pick a charity, so we're asking students. So the vote will be online, as well as along with the bylaws and the policies that we'll come to after the break. But we'll have to pick a charity for each campus. So the Cambridge ones are Cambridge Nightline, Ormiston Families Heads Up. Oh my God, there's air in here. That's the aircon just came on. It's great. And Cambridge in Mind. And then Chelmsford is Dementia, Adventure, Open Road, and South East and Central Essex Mind. And then Peterborough is Peterborough and Fenman Mind. In all honesty, I don't know much about all of them, so if you want to do your Google searches, the details will be on the website. Obviously, my personal base and our priorities mental health this year is the local minds, but I won't get any biases. So yeah, have that to think about and vote online afterwards.
So my policy that I'm looking after alongside Jamie is the gender neutral toilet policy. So that basically mandated us to go to the university and be like, we want more of these. So that's effectively what we're doing. I'm going to be working on an audit of all the different toilets in the university to see where we can make more gender neutral toilets. Obviously, space, as Michael just mentioned, is a huge issue in Cambridge and obviously in Chelmsford. So we're going to go around with our LGBT reps, trans rep in Cambridge and Chelmsford campuses to audit those toilets, see that they're all right, and then take them back to estates and basically go turn these into gender neutral toilets because they can and because we need more of them.
I'm really sorry, Kat. I also feel like our disabled reps should come with us to make sure they're accessible to everyone.
Yeah, accessibility is a really important point. We are doing an accessibility audit, so that's something I also mentioned in my report. And these two things are largely going to coincide with each other, I should think, with the timeline. So I think that instead of trying to shove disabled reps into doing one audit and then joining us another audit, which would take up twice as much of their time, these two audits can inform each other. Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. And then the next thing is lapse policy. The only recent lapse policy is where my every time. That's sorted. Where my red. That was right. Yeah. Most of them have either been resubmitted or they don't lapse until February time. So yeah. So the fun part is the introduction of new policy or the proposal of the new policy. And so we have 4 policies to consider today. And again, voting will happen after the meeting finishes online for 24 hours for reps and committee members. We'll have a very brief introduction to the policies, and we'll try and take a couple of questions on each one. So the first one is Sarah in the room.
Yeah. So
where are you? I see you. Sorry.
So my policy is basically to oppose more equality for vegan students. So at the moment there are very few options in terms of vegan options. So if you go to, for instance, Helmore Cafe, they have at best 2 sandwich options, which you can have, and that's on a good day, and sometimes you don't even get that. And so I wanted to get this policy passed through, just to kind of increase quality for vegan students, because I think it is a really important issue. I feel like the union and the university has really championed for other kind of minority groups, but I feel like vegan students have kind of been missed out. And so the main thing that I wanted to do with this policy was to first of all increase the amount of food options, vegan food options within the existing catering services. And I also wanted, if possible, to create a vegan space, so a vegan cafe. We could put it in one of the existing catering areas or wherever is best. And that would be somewhere that just has vegan food, and it would give more options and allow people to go there and feel, kind of like a safe environment, a nice environment, I think, for vegan students. And so that's what I really wanted to kind of, pass through and see a vegan space, really. And the other part of it is, there's quite a few points on the proposal. But another point was also to ask other societies to at least provide one vegan option, or if they can't, if that's not possible, to let their attendees know that there won't be vegan options available, just so that they know it will be available. So any questions?
Cool, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Sarah on increasing quality for vegan students? Great, do you mind doing that? Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to go in a circle stop.
Out of pure interest, how many vegan students or salmon-identified vegan students are there in the West?
I don't know exactly, but I know the population, I was doing a study last year, in the UK it's about 1% of the population. However, they have found that the amount of vegan students is actually increasing. So the largest age bracket that is increasing is about 15 to 24, I think it is. It's obviously quite a large portion of the students. It's quite a nice thing. I think from my own personal experience as well, I've talked to a lot of vegan students who feel quite left out, I think, at the moment.
Thank you.
So all of these sound really good, except for the additional space, because we are in real shortage of space as it is at the moment. And I just feel that your policy would have been not exactly more enticing, that's not the word. I think everything on there is really, really good except for that additional space.
Yeah.
So if maybe an amendment went through without the additional space, then I would say go for every single one of
Yeah,
these.
well I put on there if possible, because I know there might be issues kind of getting it there, but I think it's just really important if we can get more kind of vegan options in existing.
I have no problem with increasing the options or making clubs and societies pay attention to it. It's just whenever we talk about having a vegan safe space, do we have a black or minority student safe space on campus?
We currently don't have any safe space.
Yeah, so we don't have any specific safe spaces, and I feel like if you're vegan, it's kind of a choice, but we don't have safe spaces for things that aren't a choice.
Yeah, well I think it's, the thing is at the moment, we've got catering services all throughout university, so we've got absolutely tons of catering services. And like I said, you're lucky to get 2 options. And if you're a non-vegan, you get countless options, so you get absolutely tons. You can just go there and it's fine. And also as a vegan student, you have to kind of search through all of the non-vegan options because they're not separate. Yeah. They're all together. You have to hope that you can find something, which some days I haven't been able to find anything, and you end up with just a banana or some fruit because that's all you can have. And so I think even if we can't have a vegan space, even if we can just increase the options and put them separate to the non-vegan options, so so that they're in separate parts, so that you can go straight there and have to worry about going through it.
Cool. James, then down.
Okay, so actually I disagree. I can think of a space where the cafeteria could offer that, and that's the refectory by the courtyard, not the big one, the one near the vending machine. What's the Elm Street Cafe, so I don't know the name of it. I think that obviously hot food might be difficult, but they have actually got a kitchen in there as well. The other thing I have, that even as a veggie I worry about sometimes when I'm eating at the cafeteria, is that kitchen has a lot of meat products. I've worked in that cafeteria. They're not the best for following, good procedure. The food could still be contaminated. By having a kitchen where only vegan food is, prepared, that gets rid of that sort of middleman. And also, Helmore Street Cafe out of Alderham isn't used that much anyway. By converting it to a vegan cafe, it's quite small. I mean, obviously you're not going to get the cafeteria itself, but I still think, I don't see why that would be a problem.
We have got a lot of spaces already.
I also think, Laura, you're reading the idea of a safe space wrong. I don't think it's in the safe.
It's not a safe space.
Before we get into a discussion on that, sorry, not so we'll go apples to apples, go to Daryl, Laura.
I would just say to take into account the bigger picture when thinking about voting on this policy. Like, first of all, logistics are a really great thing to think about, but in this space, which includes Chelmsford, and of course you've got a Peterborough campus, it's not something that the student body need to worry about. They need to worry about the values that are included in a policy like this. And I think that secondly, I don't think there is any need for an amendment just because of that, little in brackets, if possible, covers that already.
That's fine.
And so don't allow your concerns about available space or not, or safe space for different types of students to sway whether or not you think the rest of the policy is important when you're voting on it.
My only other query was I had a concern that if they did turn a space into a vegan space and that was like the place to go if you were vegan. I had a concern that maybe in a couple of years' time they may see that as being like unfair, and they're like, well, they're segregating the vegan students from the rest of the population by not having the vegan options everywhere.
Well, having actually
would it be a case
having talked to a lot of vegan students, and I think in my personal opinion as well, a lot of them have actually really supported the idea of a vegan cafe. Because I think a lot of them don't like the idea that they're firstly produced in the same kitchen.
Yeah.
They don't like the idea that they have to go through all the non-vegan options to find vegan options. And obviously, if we had a vegan space, there would be more options by default anyway. So I think it would be a lot nicer to go there.
The only question I would have is, if we made, for lack of a better word, concessions for vegan students, would we have to do the same for those who use halal meat or kosher meat or pescatarian or other forms of other types of choices rather than just vegan and non-vegan?
I was going to let Sarah respond to that.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I can't really speak for that because obviously I don't fall into that kind of group that would use those. But if people feel that that's what they wanted, then I'd say go for it. If that's what they want to fight for. But I think if we think about all the other Dutch things we've taken it away from veganism, and that's the thing is there are a lot of vegan students within university. I know that I've talked to a lot of them. It is a growing population, and I feel like it should be recognised and we should be doing things.
I'm going to go to Kieran, then back to James, and then
I'm going to jump in and suggest that there aren't any more questions after this. If you have comments, then that'd be great. We could go on forever, so just comments, please.
Okay, so Kieran, then James, and then that's it.
Just to jump in on what you mentioned, halal and kosher meat. Having spoken to a lot of the Islamic Society or Muslims within Cambridge especially, I don't get the impression that they feel perhaps alienated to the extent that Sarah is describing for that particular community. So a lot of food is known as halal or kosher and labelled as such in the Helmore Refectory or cafes on campus, whereas perhaps, as Sarah is describing, it's not as adequately done for vegans or people that associate with that choice. So I think that, going back to what Daryl was saying very quickly, that we should take a step back from the wider issue of the safe space and the actual final points of it, and really focus down on the actual issue at hand, which is raising awareness and making all students more comfortable in eating options on campus.
Okay. One more thing, going back to the guy that mentioned, he said kosher, halal, and also pescatarianism. Pescatarianism, you know, I'm a pescatarian. If there's not a fish option, then I'll just eat veggie food or vegan food. We don't, like, do you know what I mean? It's not like vegan where you can only eat food without animal product. For us, we can just get a veggie sandwich instead. It's not the same.
I have a question about the Keep Wednesday afternoons free. I noticed that you mentioned PhD students in your union notes, but my issue is I'm a PhD research student and we don't have any scheduled classes on Wednesday afternoons, and we're certainly not even encouraged to take weekends off, never mind Wednesday afternoons. So how are you going to reach out to the PhD research students and tell them it's okay to take off a Wednesday afternoon and kind of normalize that? Because we're really not expected to take any time off at all, ever, regardless of not having classes. We're not. Exactly, that's a fabulous idea. I'm concerned about how you're going to reach research students.
Okay, that's fine. So this policy would, again, dream. There would be. Can you? I don't know where the camera is, and are you just staring at the back of my head?
To your right.
Okay. So the idea would be that all students are aware of this policy. In terms of research students, that's why we have reps to communicate those. I'm always in quite close contact with the reps because they're quite heavily involved in unions, and also they come in to the executive committee meetings. So I would be hopefully getting the reps to champion that, and in any kind of way that I could get the research, because it is very hard. I'm going to be honest. It's very hard for us to get the research students because you are constantly busy all of the time, and we can't blame you for that because, God, I wouldn't want to even try. But yeah, Grace, did you have a response to that that's more, again, eloquent than me?
I was just going to say that'd be a really sick part of the mental health campaign if we were to reach out to PhD students and talk more about how it's okay to to normalise that.
So there you go. We're going to work on talking about how PhD students there's a stigma around the fact that they don't have time off. So
come to the project planning in Chelmsford for the if you have time. If you don't, we can just talk and stuff.
So obviously, I'm basically a first/half second year student, and I'm a little bit intimidated by how much work you guys have to do. So any feedback from any of you would be brilliant, because then I would obviously have a lot more how I can approach you. So feel free to just drop me an email. That'd be great, actually.
And in terms of normalising it as well, if it passes, which hopefully it does, we can use it as sort of leverage to get and talk to like the deputy vice chancellors and stuff and let them know how important it is, and then they can feed that down to lecturers and your supervisors, etc. I don't really know enough. And get them to start talking about it and making sure you're comfortable to take that time off because you're out. Okay.
So there's just a really quick update on this. Obviously, Sarah championed this quite hard last year, along with Lee, and we took it to. We wanted it to be 20%, and for that to increase year on year, and obviously financially, that's eventually after like 10 years, quite a lot of money, and the union doesn't have quite a lot of money. So there was just a discussion that was had where the union didn't feel that that was something that was very affordable. So basically, we've just changed it to 15% each year, and hopefully that would be more viable. We know we had a policy that was 10%, and that was great, and that isn't a policy anymore. So we're taking it to 15, and hopefully that will get approved. So should I update on what Up Your Grants is? Because I've just realised that I've been talking to Michael, who's been nodding and knows what Up Your Grants is. So Up Your Grants is a way for us to increase the grant pot for societies. Because obviously, as I said, there's not a lot of money in the union or in the grant pot or anything, so we're just trying to improve and make sure that it grows. So yeah, that's what the policy is, and we're working on getting them to agree to up it by 15% every year. Hola.
I think it's really good, and I also think that it ties in really well with the discussion we had earlier about if the rep positions get changed and voted in, and if there is more demand on our societies to possibly have more committee members, then I just like more demands means more chance that you're going to get a higher response from the university. So I just think they go hand in hand really well, and I think you should vote for both if you're going to vote for one of them. I think they're really good.
So the last one is from Pat with ARU Students Union against NHS cuts.
Also, yeah, really fun title. It does what it says on the title. Basically, this would be a stance-based policy, which we don't do a lot of. I think we should do more. Basically, everyone is hopefully aware of the NHS cuts that are kind of going on thanks to our lovely government now and forever. Essentially, NHS cuts affect students on multiple levels. So we have a lot of NHS students in this campus, in terms of like nurses and midwives. So NHS cuts would affect their bursaries, introducing them to higher levels of debt. That also probably will affect student numbers coming in, which will, on long-term effect, affect the workload and cost of running the NHS, which basically goes hand in hand with eventually completely privatising it because it will become too expensive. And as well as that, NHS cuts also affect mental health services, which goes nicely hand in hand with the priority campaign we're working on this year. And I go into a little bit more about that in my policy. Basically, because of the cuts in the services in the local areas, waiting times outside of university, if you felt that was long enough, they can be up to 5 times as long. And it basically could lead to massive lack of continuity of care, especially if you're going back and forth back home and moving away from uni. It can have a huge effect on people's mental health for those reasons. So basically, our union resolves would be to stand against all proposed cuts to NHS services, like we're doing with rising fees of higher education, because we're going to the demo on Saturday, and still buy tickets, and to support student campaigns if they want to set those up here, and to support campaigns in the local community. Would anyone like to ask me any questions?
It's not so much a question, it's a bit of an observation, because I'm a course rep for the education studies group, and both in uni and sort of outside that, there are also sort of a lot of cuts towards in the education field, where in general, teachers as a general are facing a lot of cuts like pay freezes, which is leading some people to fall away from the education field. And since I came in as a first year and I'm now a third year, I've seen some of sort of the facilities available for education students sort of decrease somewhat, particularly in our Sawyers building. In our third year, we had a lot of access to Sawyers. However, since then, we've sort of lost some of the facilities to the ongoing medical side. So I definitely agree with the against the NHS cuts policy, but I think there should be sort of some interest in against education cuts, because even though we're still a bit of a small group, education as a whole is taking quite a big hit, both in uni and outside in general.
Fantastic. Would you like to comment?
I would love to write that policy with you. I think we should put that through, and that would be really great. I agree. Education cuts are crap.